Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back once again to another episode of Top 5 Poses. However, this isn't just any episode. This is the first episode of Top 5 Poses Marvel Edition. For those of you who have been with the channel since the early days, you'd remember I used to cover a wider range of figures, not just Dragon Ball, but I ended up drifting away and towards just Dragon Ball for a while. But I mean, the channel's called Brownspidey, right? So we can't let the super portion of the name die. Real quick, the rules of the series are slightly different than that of the Dragon Ball editions, in that while I'm sticking to the figure by itself, I will be including props like backgrounds or set pieces. However, I'll still only be using what comes with the figure aside from what I mentioned. That's why I'm proud to bring you the first Top 5 Poses Marvel Edition episode starring your favorite web slinger, your friendly neighborhood, Spider-Man. Hey guys, if you're brand new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and definitely ring a ding ding that bell notification button. It helps the channel grow and it helps me bring you guys a lot more. So Spider-Man, safe to say one of the namesakes of the channel and one of Marvel's, if not flagship character. From Far From Home to the animated series, this webhead has climbed the ranks of pop culture, rivaling that of Mickey Mouse, Superman, and even eclipsing someone like Goku, I'd say. Of course, we all know his origin story. Growing up in Queens, teenage high school science whiz Peter Parker was bitten by a radioactive spider, which bestowed upon him the proportional strength, speed, agility of a spider, as well as some other gifts. And although he's had many suits throughout his web-slinging career, we're gonna take a look at his most recognized suit here. Do I get any brownie points for not saying it was his first suit? Anyways, let's get into it. So first up, I have the wall crawler doing, well, just that. Wall crawling. I think this is a very underrated way to pose a Spider-Man figure in general. Granted, it does take some finessing to get it right, but it really tends to catch the eye of whoever is looking at the figure. Now, I know I've got Spidey on a piece of brick wall here, but believe it or not, this would actually work just as well supported by a stand against a side of a glass cabinet wall, or any wall for that matter. Of course, the fact that this figure comes with open hands makes all the difference, as you wouldn't be able to replicate this pose without them. You can get super creative with the angle of the head, the way his knees are bent, and how much of a stride you want his crawl to have in it. The possibilities are just that many here, and I also think that this pose works well if you've got more than one red and blue suited Spider-Man and you want to create a sort of spider barrage collage within your display. Definitely the way to go. Alright, so coming in at number 4 is a category of pose that I'd say flies under the radar a bit in terms of how popular it seems to be compared to how versatile and cool it actually is. And that is posing Spidey in a handstand based pose or some sort of mid-combat like pose, such as the one I have going on here. When we think Spider-Man, we often include the thought of this guy yo-yoing around, building up a stockpile of thugs, taking them out with a barrage of swift jolt kicks, punches, and if you've ever played a Spider-Man video game, the occasional haymaker. So why not try out a couple of these poses on your Spider-Man figure too? Now, I'll admit, this type of pose does take a little bit more finessing than your vanilla pose, or a good amount of the poses on this list actually, just because you have to understand how the body moves mid-motion in an attack, just like with the Dragon Ball figures. So it's easy to have a cool concept for a pose, only to have it look plain, just because the joints aren't naturally flowing from one another. So something to really consider and have a core crucial eye on when you're posing your figures. On its own, this pose offers much more flair and razzle-dazzle, wow, I can't believe I just used razzle-dazzle in a phrase, to your setup, and if you've got a bunch of baddies to surround them with, go ahead and throw them in there. All in all, I'd say this pose definitely deserves a fighting chance in your display. So at number 3, I have the web slinger pose literally on a wall. The type of pose you'd see when he lands after following an enemy to their hideout or just surveying the area for some thugs to take out. Now, I think this would look even better if you had a street lamp prop, but I don't, so my broken half wall will have to do. Nonetheless, I still think it works. This one, much like the last pose, is one that I'd say is quite unexpected, yet quite obvious at the same time, in the sense that we see Spidey do this all the time, yet how many of you can actually say you thought to put him in a pose like this? I bet it's not that many, and I was also in that boat for the longest time. Now again, it takes a little bit of finesse to get the body to look natural with this pose, but if you take the time to get it right, it really is a nice showpiece. It really does come down to what you have available for him to be sticking to though, as not everything looks as impressive. Okay, so at number 2, I have a pose that is oh so recognizable. It'd be blasphemy not to have it on this list, and that is the good old spider yo-yo pose. Now let me just say that as simple as this pose looks, it does require a little bit of know-how in order to get that casually relaxed, just hanging out on a webline look. Otherwise, you might end up with a more rigid, oh crap, this is my first time doing this, I hope I don't fall and bust my head look. And the key to this is placement of Spidey's knees. I often find that people tend to go too straight with them, thinking that his feet have to be touching the web line simultaneously and all that jazz. And yes, I know the piece of plastic twine here doesn't come with a figure, but let's be real guys, it's not that hard to find, and some of you probably even have spaghetti webs, so one step above what I've got. Anyways, no matter who you are, you put Spidey into this pose and you have him actually hang, you're gonna score some major points for it. It's a pose that's instantly recognizable like I mentioned, and it's actually fun to recreate, and it pours some coolness factor into the mix as well. Definitely one of the classics that deserves at least a try in your display. And what's more is that nowadays, ab crunch joints are a dime a dozen on Spidey figures, so at least you won't have to worry about him looking like he's sitting cross-legged but just upside down ever again. Alright guys, so at number 1, I have Spider-Man pose sort of mid-swing, getting ready to whip another web. For me, this pose is just so classic, so timeless, and so comprehensive. It ticks all the boxes and runs all the bases for me, as this pose encompasses Spidey's agility, speed, and just his overall style, all in one picture perfect pose. Throw in a little web prop and you got yourself a winner. And I mean, of course there are variations to this pose that do this just as well, but it really forces you to get creative and actually refine your posing game to pull these poses off and really let your mastery of posing shine. From the positioning of the joints to the webbing itself, everything comes together to portray an awesome still that could have been ripped right out from the comics, or even the big screen for that matter. And that is what it's all about, guys. At the end of the day, you end up with what I'll refer to as a signature pose. Who else locomotes around via webs, or at least who did it first? Who makes this sound with their hands to do it? And who does it all in a red and blue suit looking like a natural? This guy right here. You can definitely switch it up and have him swinging with 2 hands and such, but to me this variation gets you that much more satisfaction when you adjust the last little joint and stand back to admire your work. Priceless. So there you have it guys, my take on the top 5 poses for classic costume Spider-Man. It feels great to finally have a Marvel character in the books for this series, and I think y'all know I wouldn't have chosen anyone else to start with. Overall, Spider-Man is a very versatile character who lets us get away with just about any pose. I mean, his sense of humor can explain for just about anything else that would seem out of character. But yeah guys, what did you think? Let me know down below. If I had to tell you guys my second favorite Marvel character that wasn't directly correlated with Spider-Man, who would you guess it is? I'll give you a hint and see if you can pick up on it. He's jacked, man. Anyways guys, thanks for watching. You know what I always say, may the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows. Peace.